And Scott Pelley is at Constitution Hall in Philadelphia. He is, of course, a 60 Minutes correspondent and the anchor and managing editor of the CBS Evening News. Good enough to join us this morning, Scott. Lots to get to with this interview between the two folks on top of the Democratic ticket. But I do want to ask you, I know at one point you did read one of the emails that were part of the DNC leak. What was their response to what you read?
Well, you know, Josh, it was very interesting to me in the moment because I was reading the email that related to whether Bernie Sanders could be attacked on the point of his religion. And I've known Hillary Clinton for 25 years, and I saw her eyes start to widen as I read that email. The unspoken body language was, "What are you talking about? What just happened?" We did this interview on Saturday. She'd been consumed all morning long and into the afternoon with introducing Tim Kaine in front of 5,000 people at Florida International University. I think she might not have been briefed on the news. It was definitely my impression that she had no idea about the email scandal. So I read it to her, and she essentially punted. She said, "Look, politics based on religion is always wrong, and I don't know anything about what you just said and what you just read to me, but it doesn't sound right to me." And then Tim Kaine came in, as he often did in the interview, in her defense. I thought that was a really interesting thing in the dynamic between the two of them, was that he would often come in to her defense. And what's really interesting about that is these are two people who don't know each other well. They have known each other professionally in Democratic politics, but they're not old friends. And it was really interesting to see that chemistry between them.
It certainly was, Scott, as the first journalist to land an interview with the two of them. It was also really impossible not to experience the interview in relation to the dynamic that we saw between Donald Trump and Mike Pence. You say they didn't know each other well prior, but boy, there was a real ease between the senator and Madam Secretary.
Well, there certainly was. You know, Trump is new to politics. This is the first office he has ever run for. So he does not know Mike Pence, did not know him before, and I'm sure did not really personally know any of the candidates that they were vetting for vice president on the Republican ticket. But on the Democratic side, look, these are both old politicians, if you will. Kaine has been city councilman and mayor in Richmond, Virginia. He's been lieutenant governor, then governor in Virginia, and then now senator in Virginia. So he knows the political game. You really saw it when he came out on stage at Florida International University. He was completely at ease in campaign mode. He's been doing it for decades and decades. So they fit together really well.
He also, of course, made note of doing it over the decades, really climbing the ladder. He said he didn't miss a rung. Interestingly, as well, as this was the first time that most Americans got a real look at Senator Kaine, you asked at one point if he felt he was ready to be president. And I was struck by the fact that he didn't dodge the question, considering that it presumes a certain ambition and obviously sitting next to Hillary Clinton, a certain worst-case scenario. But again, he dove right in.
He had been asked that question a week or two before, Josh, as you know, before he was selected. And he said, "Oh, ready to be president? No one's ever ready to be president." So when I asked him the question Saturday as they were sitting together, I was surprised, too, that he, as you put it, jumped right in. He said, "I'm ready to lead." You know, he essentially said, "I don't want this to come to me. I'm not looking for it to come to me. But if under whatever circumstances it did," as you mentioned, Josh, he said, "I haven't missed a single rung on the ladder." And what he meant by that was he went from city councilman to United States senator. And so he wanted to project, as these vice presidential candidates must, that he is ready to be president. That is, after all, the #1 qualification for the job.
There were also a lot within the party, certainly Bernie Sanders supporters, who had hoped that Hillary Clinton might choose perhaps a more progressive candidate. But we also saw perhaps a bit of the diplomacy that Tim Kaine might bring to the moment and to the ticket. You asked a question, and he actually reached across the aisle in answering it. He praised Speaker Paul Ryan at a point. Did that feel like a talking point to you, or did it feel like something more?
That is such a great thing to pick out of this interview, because it struck me too, Josh. It wasn't a talking point. If you talk to Republicans, and I have, about Tim Kaine, they like him. He is known as a moderate. He's known as a guy who is willing to compromise, who's willing to give up some of what he wants in order to get something back. And many Republicans that I have spoken to think that Tim Kaine is the kind of person they can work with.
Tremendous work here, Scott. Really fascinating look at this ticket, at well, this man, and certainly these two together. Scott Pelley again at Constitution Hall. We so very much appreciate your time this morning.
Josh, great to be with you. Always terrific to be on CBSN. Thanks.